on our home trade series in commerce, we are going to deliberate on the wholesaler. Remember, the past classes we have, about 4 or 5 classes we deliberated on the retailer, its functions, types of retailing stores, and the rest of them. Today we are going to concentrate on the aspect of home trade that has to do with a wholesaler. Remember, the wholesaler is a bulk buyer that buy, store, sell out, make profits. But in our objective for today's class, we're going to look at 3 main areas. The role of wholesaler in the chains of distribution, the functions of the wholesaler, and documents used in home trade. If you have watched my class on business studies where I discuss the channels of distribution, you will see that we have about 7 channels. But the wholesaler appear in about 3 of these channels. I'm going to use the diagram of this channel to describe the role of the wholesaler in the chains of distribution. Chains of distribution has to do with how product moves from the producer down to the consumer. What are the agents? Who are those involved in between from production to consumer stage? That's the channel of distribution. So from this diagram, the wholesaler appear in 3 of the channels. How do they function? What is their role? First, they buy from, this is the wholesaler, this is the people we are concerned about, the wholesaler. These are the people we are concerned about, the wholesaler. And these are the people we are concerned about, the wholesaler. What are the functions? The producer produces, the wholesaler buys from the producer, and then take it down to the consumer. In this process, the retailer is eliminated. And so, producer produce, wholesaler buys in bulk, they take it to the final consumer. So consumer goes to the wholesaler, go to their shop, buy. Because they deal with both small quantity and large quantity. That's the role that the wholesaler play in this chain. He just buy from producer, gets to his warehouse or his store, and then sell to final consumer, either in bigger units or in smaller units. That's one of his roles. Then, the next role that the wholesaler play is, the producer produces, an agent buys from the wholesaler, from the producer. Then the wholesaler goes to the agent and buys in bulk again from the wholesaler. Then the wholesaler do not sell to retailer at this instant. He goes directly and sells to consumer. But at this instance in the chains of distribution, the wholesaler does not go to the producer because producer have agents in which they connect this wholesaler to them. So these agents can sometimes be referred to as middlemen. So they act as intermediary between the producer and the wholesaler. And after that, the wholesaler brings the goods to the consumer. That is another function, the role they play in the production process for goods to get to final consumers. Then the third one is the producer produces, the wholesaler buys. After that, this set of wholesalers sells only in large quantity. Then retailers comes and buy from the wholesalers. Then retailers take to consumers. So what are their roles? They buy from producers and give to consumer. They buy from agents and give to consumer. They buy from producer directly and sell to retailers. Then retailers have the function to take it to the consumer. That is the role of the wholesaler in the chains of distribution. So we are done with our first objective, the role of the wholesaler in the chains of distribution. What are the functions of the wholesaler? Its functions, it has a function that render both to the manufacturer and the retailer. We're going to take them together. As I'm explaining, I will differentiate what it does for the wholesaler, what it does for the producer, and what it does for retailers and consumers. Let's go to our next objective. Here is the second objective, functions of the wholesaler. This 5 is what he does for retailers, and this other 5 is what he does for manufacturers. So I'm going to take both functions as one. But this is what the function he carries out for for retailers. And this is the function he carries out for producers or manufacturers. 1. Provision of variety of goods. He stores variety of goods for retailers. 2. Make goods available in small quantity for retailers. And so retailers can go buy in small quantity from the wholesalers. Transportation services. He transports it from the point of production down to his warehouse, where retailers can easily come and buy from him. The 4th one is he carries out advertising for retailers. People are aware of a product and they go to retail store to buy them. He links the retailer and the producer because he gets feedback from the producer down to consumer and consumer back to retailer. This is the function he performs for the retailer. Most of the function he performs for the retailers will have similarity in that of the manufacturer. Now let's go to the manufacturing aspect. He buys in bulk, bulk buying for retailers. For manufacturers, buys in more quantity, makes production sales very fast for manufacturer. He carries out warehousing for manufacturer because once the manufacturer produces, he takes it down to his warehouse. Information dissemination. He gives information to the producer and then carries this information to the retailers. Financing. Sometimes he pays upfront to the producers so that the goods can be readily available for him on time. Market research. He carries out market research because he takes this research down to consumer. They get their feedback. He takes it back to producer. So these are the functions of a retailer to both the manufacturer and the retailer. Let's take the documents used in home trade. Let's take our final objective, documents used in home trade. We're going to talk about 8 of these documents. Letter of inquiry, invoice, consignment notes, delivery notes, credit notes, debit notes, a tender, and order. A letter of inquiry is a letter sent by a buyer to the manufacturer to inquire about their products and their terms of trade. And so when the producer gets that kind of inquiry, process it and send feedback to the buyer. Invoice, sometimes we call it receipt. It is a document given to the buyer describing the kind of goods, the quantity of goods he has bought, whether he has paid in full or part payment, or he has buy those goods on credit. And so it's a receipt, it's a kind of document to show things you have purchased, at what quantity, at what price, and at what terms of trade. Consignment notes, it's a note given to a transporting company, sometimes public transporting company, to show that they are handling a particular product that is to be delivered to a buyer. And in there is the description of goods he's carrying, the quantity he's carrying. And when it gets to the buyer used that note to check the product or goods that is sent to him, if it meets the specification and the number, quantity that was sent to him. Delivery note, it's a note sent to the buyer to show that his goods have gotten to him in good condition and all conditions about the trade are met. Credit note, it's a note sent to the buyer to show that he has been overcharged for what he bought. For example, if a goods that was bought was to be charged at 100,000 naira and he is overcharged 101,000, the 10,000 here is the overcharge. A note is sent to the buyer to let him know that we have overcharged you, and then subsequent correction can be made in the future. Debit note is the opposite of credit note because debit note is on the charge For this, it is 100,000. Let's say at this, he pays 90,000 for the product instead of the 100,000. So the undercharge is the 10,000 that he is owing. And so appropriate correction will be making the appropriate books of account. If you have been on a business study class where we discuss some books of account, the petty cash book, the journal, the ledger, you will find out how these errors are corrected. A tender is a kind of inquiry about an advert that a buyer sees from the producer. If you have viewed this advert, he sent this kind of tender to the producer to get an inquiry, and the producer sent back a feedback to let them know that they receive their inquiry, and then they give them their terms of trade. Then lastly, an order. After all said and done, and the producer and the buyer, it's okay with the terms of trade, he's okay with the standard of goods, and he's okay with their means of pay, terms of trade, he goes ahead and order for goods. There, business have been contracted, and then order delivery can take place. We'll have a lot of books. I just dealt with 8. Your assignment is go find more 2 to this to make it 10. Watch this video over and over again. If you want to know more about document books, go to our business study class where I talk about different books used in business transaction. Navigate through this channel, it is there. Remember, I told you these courses are interrelated, so always go through them. Our business study class, our economics class, our commerce class, and others. You'll find them very interesting. You can head over to Class Online School if there are courses you are not seeing here, subjects you are not seeing here. You can get them for a token. If you have not subscribed, smash that subscribe button. Turn on the notification so that you will be first to know. You will be the first to know when we upload a video. Give us thumbs up if you like what you're doing. Give us comment below the comment box. Let it be an interactive section so that we can interact with you. Thank you for always coming to Class Online School. Invite others. Let's get to the 2K subscribers. Thank you for always dropping by. You're my community, and I love you all. Until we meet in our next class. Bye.